Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar for Compulsory Attendance Age Law. Ramona and I are here. This is Melissa Zervos. If you could sign in the chat room so that we ensure that everybody can hear and is getting this message. And then as the presentation continues, we will be taking questions through the chat box. And then at the end, we will be able to address all those questions at the end, because a lot of the information often comes up as the presentation is carrying on. So Ramona, I'm here to click slides and manage the chat box and make sure people are muted. Ramona's here and she's about to start the presentation. Thank you all for signing in, and I'm assuming that you can hear us then. This is also being recorded. So we will have a recording of this presentation available for folks. I think through this new system, we're on Zoom for the first time, that you on your personal desktops might be able to record for yourself. I'm not sure. I haven't worked out all the bells and whistles of this software yet, but I think that can happen. So not to take any more time, I'm going to hand it right over to Ramona.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everyone. This is what we know about the Maryland Compulsory Attendance Age Law. So I want to stress this is what we at Dollar know about this law.
I got it. This takes a while. Oh!
So this is how I'm guessing some of you feel about this law. So we're going to try and make this not quite so ferocious, and hopefully this is not how you'll be feeling at the end of this presentation. So I want to give just a little bit of a history of the law. So in 2012, it was the Maryland General Assembly that actually passed the law that would raise the compulsory school attendance age. Then in July 1st, 2015, the age was raised from 16 to 17, and then on July 1st, 2017, it was raised to 18. So I want to briefly talk about who is responsible for what parts of the law. So the Maryland General Assembly wrote the actual law. It is the Maryland State Department of Education, otherwise known as MSDE, responsibility to actually interpret the law. So when we have questions about what parts of the law may need some clarification, they are the agency that we go to for that clarification. It is Dollar's responsibility to uphold and to enforce the law. If you have any questions about the interpretation or need clarification of the law, we will then go to MSDE on your behalf to seek those answers to anything that might need some further interpretation. And it is the local program's responsibility to uphold and to enforce the law. So to help us get through this presentation, I have some puppies throughout the presentation that will hopefully reduce our stress level for this somewhat stressful information.
Stop it.
So the law actually states that anyone who lives in this state and is 5 years old or older and under the age of 18, they are required to attend a public school during the entire school year. I want to make this point that for most of the students that will come to your program who are under the age of 18, very few of them are going to meet the exceptions to the law. So for the people that meet the exception, we're talking about only a handful of students. So you shouldn't have that many that are going to fall into that category. So first I'm going to go through the exceptions to the law, and there are 14 exceptions. And I just want to go through each one of them. However, I'm going to say now that there are 4 of the exceptions that still prohibit a potential student from being enrolled into your program, and I'm going to go through each one of those 4 exceptions. So the first exception is that a student is not required to enroll in the K-12 system if they already have a Maryland high school diploma or one from out of state, or if they have earned a diploma or an equivalency or certificate by passing the GED test. The second exception to being enrolled in the K-12 system is those students who most likely were enrolled in special education program in the regular K-12 system and completed the Maryland High School Certificate of Completion. The third exception is those what we would normally call home instruction or homeschooling. Now the more common term is actually home instruction and not homeschooling, but some jurisdictions still use the term homeschooling. The fourth exception is actually related to the previous exception. So for those who received home instruction and have completed the program, again, they are not required to be in the K-12 system. Number 5 refers to students who are now receiving home or hospital instruction. So those are students who are either physically or psychologically have challenges and who under doctor's orders are not required to attend the regular K-12 system. So instead, those students would receive instruction from teachers through the K-12 system, either in the hospital or at their home. Number 6 and number 7 are pretty self-explanatory. Just 6 is that they are married, and 7 is that they are in military service. 8 would be any of those students who are court appointed to attend an institution that does not have an educational program. Number 9 would require documentation from DSS that the student is providing financial support to that family. Number 10 refers to a student who was expelled from the K-12 system. This will be the exception that you would probably most likely see of students coming to your program. Number 11 is for a student who is pregnant or a parent and is enrolled in an alternative educational program, and 12 is for anyone who is attending an alternative educational program. And I will discuss what that means for a student who is enrolled in an alternative educational program in a couple minutes. Number 13 applies to a student who has written consent from the parent and the county school board, as well as being enrolled part-time in a public school system and a private career school. Number 14 is anyone who has received a written waiver from the state superintendent. So after going through those exceptions, I think you earned some more puppies. So
we in the room get a little distracted by the puppies. Excuse our giggling.
So now we're going to go through the 4 exceptions in which, even though they are an exception for a student that would not be required to attend a regular K-12 system, they still are not necessarily permitted to attend our program. To make this even a little bit more complicated, there are different guidelines and rules for those testing for the GED test versus those who would be looking for our services. So we're going to start with number 3, which is homeschooling. So if a student is homeschooled and they are under the age of 18, they are permitted to take the GED test. However, they need to go to GEDgo.com, and they need to have the GED office home instruction verification form completed and submitted to the Maryland GED office so that that age alert can be removed and they can move forward in the registration process. However, a student who is homeschooled and who is under the age of 18 cannot be enrolled into an adult education program. The reason for that is because if the parent or the student elects to no longer be homeschooled, that student, by virtue of the Compulsory Attendance Age Law, is now required to go back to the K-12 system and enroll through that avenue. So they cannot be duly enrolled into a homeschool program and into an adult education program. So number 5 is also an exception for us. But again, a tester who wants to attempt the GED test, they can do so by completing the 2017 to 2018 GED Office School Withdrawal Exception Form. Once they do that, it can then be approved and they can move forward in the registration process. However, because students who are receiving home and hospital instruction, they are receiving instruction from teachers through the K-12 system. So although they're not enrolled may not be enrolled in a specific school, they're still enrolled in that school system. And again, they cannot be duly enrolled in the K-12 system and in one of our programs. And let me also just mention that if that student were to no longer need home and hospital instruction, they would also then be required to go back into the regular K-12 system. Alternative educational program. This is probably the area that is the most confusing. And in 2 more slides, I'm going to explain exactly what alternative educational program means. So if you are a tester and you want to take the GED test and you are in an alternative educational facility such as Free State Challenge Academy or Job Corps, you would then be given the opportunity to take the GED test at those facilities. However, a student who is in an alternative educational program cannot be duly enrolled in that program and also in an adult education program. Number 11 is pretty close to exception number 12. The only difference is that now we're adding on that the individual is pregnant or a parent. But again, a tester can attempt to take the GED test if they are at a program such as Free State Challenge Academy or Job Corps, and also they cannot be enrolled in our program. So what is an alternative educational program? It's a program that is designed for students who are disruptive in the K-12 system. So each county or most counties have an alternative program in which those students can get services to address those specific needs. The purpose of that program is to address those issues and then to reintroduce them back into the K through 12 system. Therefore, it's not a pathway into our program. It's a pathway actually back into the K through 12 system. And therefore, anybody in an alternative educational program, by the design of that program, cannot be enrolled in our educational program. And more puppies. Just to help you out here a little. So now we're going to go through some of the frequently asked questions that the GED testing office gets, and then we'll go through some of the frequently asked questions that have been received in our office. So can a tester take the GED test at age 16 or 17? Yes, they can. If they're homeschooled, as previously stated, they need to fill out and complete and submit the GED office home instruction verification form. Or if they meet one of the exceptions, and they have to meet one of the exceptions to the Compulsory Attendance Age Law, then they have to fill out the appropriate withdrawal exception form in order for the age alert to be taken off. It's that specific form that needs to be completed. In the GED testing office, they get a lot of forms that are just what you might accept in your program as the official withdrawal paperwork, but that's not accepted in that office. They have to go to gedgo.com and find the appropriate form to have completed and submitted. It's only that form that will be accepted and will allow them to move forward in the registration process. So why do testers who are 18 years old require approval from the GED, the Maryland GED office to take the GED tests? This is where it gets a little confusing. In COMAR, it says that they need proof to, that they are officially withdrawn. That's really not quite accurate. What it is they're not requiring proof of withdrawal. They are requiring proof that that individual is not enrolled in the K through 12 system. So that's the distinction. Because at age 18, they do not and actually cannot be withdrawn, they can just stop coming. But the GED office needs to verify that they are not enrolled in the K through 12 system, because you cannot be enrolled in the K through 12 system and sit for the GED test. So my student submitted the completed GED office school withdrawal. Actually, it should be exemption form to the GED office, but has not been approved to continue with registration. Why? There are a couple reasons for that. Some individuals have submitted paperwork and they were 19 years old. So there's nothing for us to approve. The forms require a visible school seal or stamp because they need to verify that this was filled out by the appropriate personnel at the school. If that school seal or stamp is not visible, they cannot approve that form. Like previously stated, they may have submitted withdrawal paperwork that is the school withdrawal paperwork, but it needs to be that specific form that has been filled out and completed. Another reason it's not accepted is maybe they didn't meet any of the exceptions and that they are really still required to attend school in the K through 12 system. So they get a lot of W-50s, which means whereabouts not known. Quite simply, what it means is that the student just stopped coming. But that doesn't make it an exception, and that doesn't then grant them the hold coming off of their age alert. Or maybe they just didn't provide their school contact the student contact information, and they weren't able to get a hold of that student to let them know that there's something missing from their paperwork. Okay, so how long does it take to obtain approval for the age alert to come off for those who are 16 to 18? It should happen in about 2 to 3 days from when the GED office gets that information. I can tell you it generally happens that day. So if the alert hasn't come off within 2 to 3 days, they should contact the Maryland GED office. The testers usually do not receive notification. It is incumbent on the tester to go into their GED account and see that that alert has come off. Again, if it hasn't come off within 3 days, then they should notify the GED office and let them know that, and find out why it hasn't come off.
Are you ready?
So before we move into the adult education frequently asked questions, a couple more puppies for you. Okay, so these are the frequently asked questions that we get in our office. So I apologize for reading the questions, but I'm going to read the questions. So if we have students who are already enrolled prior to July 1st, 2017, and are 17 years of age, and have a withdrawal form and won't turn 18 until next year, are they permitted to stay in our program? Yes, as long as they were already enrolled prior to that, they basically get grandfathered in. So we're not going to say, oh yes, you received services, but because you're not 18 anymore, we're going to kick you out of our program until you're 18. They can continue services in the current fiscal year. So what is the definition of enrolled for this rule? I have a student age 17 who submitted an online application in April and subsequently pre-tested on July 8th, 2017 at our program. She has withdrawal paperwork from her high school. Is she eligible for services? The rule that we made internally to help those students who started the process prior to July 1st is that if they completed an assessment between April 1st and June 30th of 2017, they would be considered enrolled, and yes, you could then serve those students in this current fiscal year. However, if they did not at least complete an assessment, and that means complete an assessment, not just do the the locator.
Oh.
So they need to have done some actual pre-testing during those dates. If not, then they would have to wait until their 18th birthday in order to enroll in your program. So we have an 18-year-old who originally was our client when he was 16. He gave us a copy of the withdrawal papers then. We have not seen the student for over a year. If he wishes to return, are the original withdrawal papers okay to use, which say he legally withdrew at the age of 16, or do we need to ask for updated paperwork? As long as you have the appropriate withdrawal paperwork, that student is good to go. You don't need to ask that student to resubmit additional paperwork. You can just use whatever paperwork was originally submitted to continue to serve that student. We are assuming that students who fall under an exception category are still okay to participate in the classes. Yes. However, if they fall under exceptions 3, 5, 11, or 12, then no, you cannot accept them into your program. But just make sure that they do meet the requirements for the exceptions. I would also strongly recommend that you document and get whatever paperwork you can to verify their claim. So, for example, if the student says that he or she is married, then asking for a marriage certificate would be appropriate. You want to make sure that if they do indeed meet the exception, that you have the proper documentation to back that up. Basically, at the end of the day, it's your neck on the line. So you want to make sure that if, in the case of an audit, that you have some proof as to why you admitted that student who is under the age of 18 into your program. So we have a couple students who have been administratively separated from the public school system and are not allowed to go back to the public school system falling under one of the categories listed. Yes, that's true. That would fall under exception 10. Again, if you can get some sort of documentation, it could be something as simple as just calling up the school system or the school and verifying that that student has been administratively separated. Basically, what that means is that they were expelled from that school.
Betsy, we see your question, and Ramona will take it when she finishes the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
So now we're going to address some ESL students. So if a 17-year-old student is seeking ESL services and has a high school diploma, is he exempt from the policy? So anyone who has a high school diploma, regardless of the country in which he or she earned that diploma, would not be permitted to enroll in the K-12 system. The K-12 system just won't even take them because they already have a diploma. However, again, I would strongly recommend, especially if they have a diploma from out of the country, to ask them for proof. And the reason I say that is if you take them into your program and they are under the age of 18 and they do not have a high school diploma, they are required by Maryland law to be enrolled in the K-12 system. If they now live in the state, they are now subject to Maryland law. A student has never taken classes in this country. They cannot withdraw if they have never attended classes in the United States. Can the student be enrolled into our program? So again, okay, so if a student has never taken classes in this country and they're under the age of 18, again, they're required, there's no age on here, so I'm going to kind of address a couple things. So if they're under the age of 18, then they are required to be enrolled in the K-12 system. However, if they're 18 years or older, then they are not required to be enrolled in the K-12 system. So if you're taking a student who is 18 years old, I would suggest that you verify that the student is not enrolled in the K-12 system. This, again, could be as simple as just making a call and just verifying that this student is not enrolled. There are some jurisdictions in which this is easier to do than others. If it is a jurisdiction that is not willing or able to verify that, again, I would just make note of the date, the time, the person that you spoke to, and you can go ahead and make the assumption that that student is not enrolled, and you can go ahead and accept them into your program. So I want to make this clear because the question asks they cannot withdraw if they never attended. Again, we're not looking for, if they're over the age of 18, we're not looking for withdrawal. We're looking for non-enrollment. So is a student who is 18 required to have official school withdrawal documentation? Again, no, they're not. However, we're looking for non-enrollment, not withdrawal. We have been requesting the withdrawal letter from the 18-year-olds who are being turned away without a letter of withdrawal or non-enrollment because according to the public school, 18-year-olds are not required to be in school and they are not required to serve them. Yes, that is absolutely true. I think where the confusion is coming in is making the distinction between withdrawal and non-enrollment. And from what I've heard, there are some jurisdictions that are not very helpful with verifying non-enrollment. But again, our policy here is that, if they're not going to give you that information, then you can go ahead and assume that that student is not enrolled in that school system. So if after all this, you're kind of still looking like this, we feel your pain because this law is a little confusing and can be a little puzzling. So we're going to take some questions now. So the first question is, can I just clarify? If they are 18 and do not have withdrawal paperwork, they need to wait until 19. Again, you're not looking for withdrawal paperwork. You're looking for non-enrollment. So you will, I'm going to use the word never. You will probably never be able to get withdrawal paperwork because withdrawal paperwork for an 18-year-old doesn't exist because they don't withdraw at 18. If they stop coming at 18, they're just now not enrolled, but they're not withdrawn. They're withdrawn if they're under the age of 18, but not if they're 18. So again, you're just verifying that they're not enrolled. Okay. The other question is for students over 18, how do we verify that the student is not enrolled in the K-12 system? Please repeat that part again. Can we take the student word for it? Self-reported. Okay, so you can do one of two things. You can call the school system and ask if they will provide you that information. And it can just be a phone call. It can be, just writing down the date, the time, and the person that you spoke with. If they tell you that they can't or they don't have those records or whatever, then what I would do is get the student, and this is even true for students who claim to have a high school diploma from another country and don't have that documentation, or maybe were married in another country and they don't have that marriage certificate. The best thing that I can tell you to do is to get the student to write out a statement attesting to that fact, and have them actually sign it that what they are submitting is true. I mean, at some point, you can only do so much. And that's probably the best thing that you're going to be able to do. But then the onus isn't, but then you have done everything reasonable to document and to verify that what they are claiming for their exception is meeting the criteria and that you can then accept them into your program. Isn't that FERPA protected information? Again, they don't have to give it to you. I honestly, I'm not a FERPA expert by any means. I'm not even a FERPA novice. So that I can't answer. I know that in programs where I've worked, what we say is, you don't have to give us this information, but if you want to give us this information, you can.
We should double check on the FERPA.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's all the questions. All right. Oh.
So if you have any questions about the actual testing, you can contact Molly Dugan. If you have any questions in regards to students being admitted into your program, you can contact me. However, I do want to say this. It is not our law. So we cannot grant you any exceptions to the law. We can't change it. We can't add anything. We can't take anything out of it. We can only enforce it and uphold the law. So, I just ask that you don't ask us for an exception to the law, because that we cannot do.
There's one other question from Betsy.
If we are just verifying non-enrollment, how does the student clear the age alert on the GED, on GED.com? That's a totally different process. So you as a program verifying their alert is, verifying their non-enrollment is a totally separate from their clearing their age alert. For them to clear their age alert, they need to go to GEDgo.com and have the appropriate paperwork filled out by their school. The school will fill out the information, will put the school stamp or the school seal. That student then needs to submit that paperwork to the GED office. The GED office will then review it to make sure that it's completed and that they do meet the exception. And then they will take off the age alert. So it's two totally different processes. And I know that can be somewhat frustrating to students or to your programs, but the one really has nothing to do with the other. Are there any other questions?
No questions? We have any more puppies, Ramona? Oh, yay.
Oh, we have another one. From this, I understand that students cannot be duly enrolled in our adult education and Free State Challenge Academy. Correct. Yes, that is correct. We have already been serving these students and enter data into LACES. Our role was to provide an instructor at Free State in addition to the instructors that we already have there.
Then we might have to take that back and address that after this webinar.
Yeah, that might be something that really is separate from the compulsory age.
So yeah, Brandy, we can get back to you on that and how to move forward after this webinar. But thank you.
Okay, do we just not do this going forward?
That's following Brandy.
Okay. We have a form for 18.
We have for 18-year-olds to sign to confirm that they are not enrolled in the system. Is that okay?
Yes. Again, the onus is going to be on you to have the documentation. So at the end of the day, whatever you are comfortable with, we're not going to dictate what form or what documentation you need to have. It needs to be at a program level of what you will feel comfortable with. Again, should there be an audit and someone questions why someone under the age of 18 was admitted into your program. Okay. If I have a student who is 18 and is studying now, if she turns 19 before she is ready to test, then she wouldn't have an age exception, correct. Yes, the GED.com system knows when that student turns 19. So as soon as the student turns 19, the age alert comes off. So there have been cases in which we have recommended students or potential testers to wait until their 19th birthday to get that age alert off.
That's it. Any more questions out there? We have two that we're going to take away. We're going to double check on the FERPA situation and also check in with Brandy about the Free State and see what the steps are moving forward on that. If there are no more questions, we will sign off for today.
So thank you for attending. We appreciate your interest and your questions and willingness to find out more about the Compulsory Attendance Age Law. So thank you very much.
All right.